Yeah, hey. Welcome for those of you that came along and all of you out there in YouTube land who are going to catch this later. This is the most experimental storytelling that I've got for this year's PBH Free Fringe. Last year, it was the inky stories. This year, it's this Kiya, Chronicles of Kiya. The Chronicles of Kiya and this particular story is based on a fantasy novel I started work on in 1992, 93, and I never finished it. I've got plenty of other books published, but this one, it being fiction and fantasy, is a challenge to get out there. So I've just let it sit there for the last couple of decades, or is it 3 decades? Scary. So I thought I'll brush off because some of these characters I adore, and throw this together and see what happens. It's taken the last month or two to put it together, and last week this week, just got as a couple of days ago, yesterday in fact, I was in Snowdonia in northern Wales, up in the mountains, in a nice hut by a running river with loads of trees, pretty much like this, and I just knocked it. So that's just destroyed the magic of theatre, although obviously the river's not moving, so dead giveaway. So it would have been much like this, and I could well have actually recorded it there and then, except for the noise of the river. So first run through, as I finished it, was actually only on Thursday, in the hot tub while knocking back some cider with my wife, and she had to endure the first whole show in the rough as I stuck it into my head. So you're about to get the second go, and hopefully I would have ironed out a few of these problems. The Chronicles of Kiya. And I forgot what the title was called. What was it? Lies, Surprises, something like that. Anyway, Chronicles of Kiya. So Percival Duppy, on the back of his favourite dappled grey, dappled mare, Betsy, plodded along the dirt track, eager to get to the village ahead of Fordwich before nightfall. These particular lands at the moment are rife with bandits, and his hand was never far from his sword, just in case. And in particular, the forest that they travelled through just before the village, prime bandit country. Slightest sound of birds, twigs cracking, he was looking around. But all his time in his mind, he pictured the wonderful food and drink at his favourite inn that he frequently stays on this particular track, on the main road between the north and the south of the country. He casts a quick glance over his shoulder at his travelling companion. That's probably putting it nicely. The travelling companion was sort of thrust upon him, not by choice. They're on a mission for the king, and his choice of partner would not be one of the most famous, well, perhaps infamous would be the right word, assassin, who sort of keeps pretty much in the shadows all the way for the last 2 weeks. It has been a very boring journey. Not a word comes from those lips, although he thinks it may not even have lips. For Kiya, the assassin, is clothed completely in head to toe in black. Nothing exposed. Hands, face, only 2 slits for luminous violet eyes. Unnerving. For 2 weeks, the journey has been uneventful, for they are still in civilized lands. But nightly companionship has certainly been, and fireside chat has been non-existent. So Duppy was particularly eager to reach this inn, for it is one of his favourite stopping points. And not quite just the clothing and countenance of Kiya is disturbing. What really sends the goosebumps along his back, and certainly causes his own horse to be a little nervous, is the steed on which Kiya rides. It is certainly not of natural origin. A big, dark, black workhorse, eyes glowing red, certainly not natural, and even also when it's on cobbles, sparks come from every single clump of its hooves on the floor. No, the shivers are not great. The inn is not far now. He can see over the hill, and as daylight goes, he nudges Betsy to get a move on because his stomach is beginning to rumble, and he can taste the beer on his lips already. On entering the village or small town, it's one of the more prosperous of this area, which is the breadbasket of the country. It is pure arable land. Crops are plentiful. Usually, and this is the surprise for Duppy at the moment, is that the village is not as busy as it should be. Usually it's teeming with traders and herdsmen and so on. Okay, we have the war in the south, for which that is a part of their mission to go and assist. But even so, there's something not quite right here. There are a few traders or messengers or journeymen or whatever on this road. There's only a few moving backwards and forwards on their journey, not stopping. Shrugging this off is just paranoia. He nudges Betsy to the inn. Dismounting, ties up Betsy in the stables, making sure his lovely favourite friend has a nose stuck in a bag of oats to keep her occupied. He saunters around to the front and enters the inn. As he's opening the door, the riotous, which is completely opposite to the outside, goes quiet as everybody stares. Hands go nervously to weapons. Duppy has made quite an impact. Dressed all in velvet, crimson velvet, ruffled shirt, huge floppy hat, which is totally impractical for him, filled with many white feathers. He understands that his appearance is a little bit unusual for a slightly poor establishment such as this. But the faces of those that stare are not friendly. Except for the one, the landlord, Potho, who stands behind the bar, habitually rubbing and cleaning a jug with a filthy rag, as he is always appearing to be doing. Potho, instead, grins at Duppy, puts down his tools and welcomes his old friend in. At the convivial reception, the chatter resumes. obviously not a threat to anyone there. Duppy swaggers across to the bar and looks around with his grin and his little handlebar moustache flicking. He leans across the bar to Potho. Well, my friend, everyone seems on edge today. Potho's grin disappears, and as he looks around the room, yes, my friend Duppy, is strange times. With this war, very few are stopping here. The road is very busy with people back and forth between the front line and the capital. But there's other things, more of that later. Before Duppy can mention anything else, the door opens again and all goes quiet. Duppy hears no footsteps, but he knows instantly who is behind him. He throws a glance behind to confirm, just in case. And of course, it is Kiya. Many, but this strange, dark, covered figure. There is only the one person that dresses like this, and Kiya is known throughout the land. For an assassin, he's not very, let's think, how shall we say, inconspicuous. But Kiya ignores all and heads over to the gloom in one of the nooks. Duppy can't help notice, though, that there's one person that seems to continuously take an interest in Kiya's presence. He's completely covered in a cloak, but Duppy can spot the tip of a sword underneath, poking out from towards the bottom. He sits with his back to the bar and watches Kiya as Kiya sits in the corner. Duppy, trying to change the feel of the room, the sudden death that appears to have walked in, loudly demands from his friend beer, food, and rooms for the night. Potho agrees. You can have all of those, my friend. But quickly, Duppy drops his voice and whispers to Potho. The figure over there that watches my friend Kiya. Do you know them? Potho acts surprised. You travel with Kiya the assassin? What strange times, my friend. Yes, Potho. We are on King's business, so travelling companions are not easily picked. But who is this man? Who is this figure that watches so intently? I do not know, my friend Duppy. I did take over an order of beer earlier. He claims he's from the south, travelling to the capital in the north. A messenger. But he lies, because on his boots there is clay, and clay is only further north of here. He has come from the north, and he only arrived a few hours before you. Duppy ponders this while he takes a sip of his nice cold beer and awaits his food. So, my friend Potho, why you were saying something's wrong? Potho looks around anxiously. His continuing rubbing of the tankard and with his rag emphasizes his anxiety. Making sure no one is overhearing, he leans to his friend's ear. The war has changed things, that is certain. With the Royal Guard on the front line, they are not policing the area. Now, I can accept bandits. That is a natural way of being, especially with the forest nearby. But things are slightly unusual. Last 2 weeks, banditry has turned into kidnapping. And kidnapping with no ransom. That makes no sense. Many young girls and women have been taken from the village. Perhaps they don't put up a fight. 2 boys were found dead late recently. Perhaps they did put up a fight and were killed, but we do not know why these people are taking our villagers. I don't let my daughter out now. And only this morning, the miller came in frantic to say his 2 daughters had been abducted while taking a cart back from market. We don't understand. We are frightened. We have no support. The king's men do not care, for the war is more important to them. We are anxious. The whole village is locking down. And I have to say, even my own wife has been taken 3 days ago. I do not know. I am very anxious to what has become of all these people. Duppy's brow creases and ponders. Perhaps once I've eaten and you've shown us to our room, I'll come back down and we can talk about this some more, my friend. While I'm on King's business and I have a mission far in the south, 2 days out of that I can spare easily. I might be able to help unravel some of this. If I can provide assistance, I will. If not, I can call upon my connections. As you know, I am heir to the Duchy of Onholt. I'm not without influence. Duppy eats and drinks. Kiya accepts nothing. Potho is grateful for Duppy's words. For though Duppy, Sir Percival Duppy, heir to a great land and fortune, is not the typical aristocrat. He may wear exquisite clothing, carry a posh sword, and has airs and graces fit for the royal court. Percy or Duppy is equally happy and comfortable talking with the commoners. In fact, he does prefer the slightly more rougher life. for he is a bit of a black sheep of the family. A great swordsman, a mean card player, and friends with any who meet him. His charisma draws in all those around him, and he is often, unfortunately, the wary people, husbands do wary of him, for he is very popular with the ladies for his calm and flattering words. Once Duppy has eaten, he beckons for Duppy and Kiya to follow him upstairs to their rooms. Two separate rooms, for although Percy is not averse to sharing rooms when the need comes, he would rather have somewhere well away from that strange and unknown creature that is Kiya. Duppy enters his room, dumps his saddlebag to the floor, and unbuttons his tunic with great relief before collapsing on the bed briefly, which is a bit filthy, but hey, Duppy's slept in worse places. Glad to be removing of his costume and to be back in his natural environment that he feels more comfortable in. With a bit of a brief rest, he drags himself back off the bed and goes to return back downstairs to his discussion with Potho. A quick glance at Kia's door, Duppy has second thoughts about disturbing his unusual companion. Kiya does unnerve him. Now, Duppy had virtually no fear whatsoever, but not with Kiya. No one knows the identity of this creature. No one knows what race or gender or anything about it. They all assume it's a male, for the figure is very fits that. Stature is not unusual. Build is quite slight, but then that's probably natural for an assassin. It's just those eyes, those luminous violet eyes are very unnerving. And the way that Kiya is known to turn up whenever somebody is in need of those particular kinds of services. No, Duppy puts Kiya out. Let's rejoin the party. And so the evening goes. Beer, food, drink, more food and drink. The room is convivial. But as the evening fades away and the patrons return home or collapse unconscious to the floor, Duppy and Potho resume their chat. And Potho can give some background information on what they know about these hostage takers. In the room upstairs, Kiya sits cross-legged on the floor. A myriad of sharp-edged weapons surround him, gleaming in the partial light from the window. Between Kiya's hand is a glowing ball of light that the violet eyes stare fixedly into. The image within the ball is of downstairs, of Potho and Duppy talking. Kiya listens intently to the conversation. Oh, Duppy, there's Kiya. You know this is a trap, don't you? 2 weeks? How very convenient. But who is this trap for? Is it for you, my friend, or for me? We shall see, I suppose. And the light fades. Kiya jumps to his feet and lightly tips toes over the edged blades that lie across the floor, glancing at the filthy bed. Kiya opts to sit in the corner, back against the wall. Slowly, Kiya begins to unwind the thick black fabric that covers the face and reveals a young woman, white hair, very pale skin, and albino. The eyes of violet shining bright. Kiya opens some of the tunic and relieves the pressure of a bound body. She lets out a sigh. 2 weeks bound is long enough. He doesn't stop watching me. But let us think of what to do for tomorrow, where it looks like we need to resolve this. I would rather not have someone on our backs that's a threat to either of us. But I do wonder who it is and why. Following morning, Duppy staggers from his room, his saddlebag hung over his shoulder, his tunic half done up, his hat at a bit of an angle. He is worse for wear from last night. That was a lot of drinking. The ground feels a little uneven. I'm pretty certain that's just the architecture and not the beer. But he steadies himself on the banister as he goes downstairs. He notices Kiya's door already open and wonder where Kiya may be outside somewhere, lurking. Down in the bar, he orders some hair of the dog and knocks it back down his dry throat. It feels a bit better. Going out to the stable, the bright light of the morning hurts his eyes, but he continues. He needs to follow this track that Potho told him about last night. Hopefully, he may have some clues about those that are taking their womenfolk. He saddles up Betsy, who's still munching away on bags of oats. And as he does the last of the buckles up on the saddle, a noise behind him. He wonders if it's Kiya or someone else. Kiya probably wouldn't make a noise. So casually, he reaches for the hilt of his sword, but then stops when he feels the cold edge of steel against his back of his neck. Don't move, a gruff voice behind him. Duppy withdraws his hands and holds them up. My dear fellow, the sudden activity sobering Duppy up rather quickly and setting him to his usual happy, cheerful and convivial, friendly self. I'm sure whatever the problem is, we can talk about it like adults. And he slowly begins to turn to face the holder of this weapon. He's a little disgusted at the sight of the man before him in rags, dirty. Obviously has not had a bath in months, if ever. But this could be a lead. My dear fellow, he continues, are you a part of the local outlaws? He's hoping for a reply, but unfortunately things don't quite go to plan. For just behind and above this ruffian, Duppy spots the dark figure of Kiya descending head first down a thin rope. Duppy's eyes fixate on Kiya, and this man, who has some wits about him, evidently notices Duppy's surprise and turns to look. He doesn't look for very long, for Kiya at that moment slices his throat. Kiya drops to the floor, cleaning her knife. Duppy is not happy. Kiya, that was a lead. Why did you have to do that? Kiya shrugs. Duppy is quite angry and seething, returns back to the his Betsy and leads her out to the pathway that Botho had pointed out. He doesn't even bother to look to see if Kiya's following. And he rides off into the forest through this path. Kiya watches Duppy disappear into the darkness, putting her dagger away in her waist pouch. She begins to run, somersaults into the air to land upon her black steed, which has just appeared from nowhere. She takes a slow walk with her horse, its hooves striking sparks at every step, and slowly follows Duppy into the darkness. Duppy is no tracker, but he's quite certain, and it is certain as the nose and moustache on his face, that this track is well used, even though narrow. Lots of hoof prints, lots of feet, possibly some cart tracks. They head off further into the depths of the forest. It's certainly not a regular route, but it certainly have been used quite a lot recently. Not entirely certain what to expect. He rests his hand again on his horse, on his sword, just in case. But that other fellow caught him slightly off guard and didn't want that to happen again. The path winds a few times, almost taking Duppy's hat off his head with low branches. For an hour, he follows the single path with the dirt and mud churning up. He's certain he's not alone. He casts glances around in all directions. He can't see anyone for certain, but he has a feeling he is being watched. A twig snaps to his right. His heart beating, he grabs his sword and begins to withdraw, looking at that, but Kiya steps out from the shadows. He lets out a slight swear and is about to admonish Kiya when Kiya puts her finger up to where her mouth would be if it wasn't completely wrapped in cloth. Duppy stops and waits. Kiya points into the forest. And Duppy takes another look. He was right. He's not alone. They're not being massively careful now, but there are definitely figures out there. He could see some vague camouflage, but not good. But it's the tips of the arrows reflecting off some of the filtered sunlight that catches his attention. They are all armed with bows. So why aren't they attacking? They could easily floor him and he would never know when an arrow hits. Curious. He continues along with Duppy, Kiya tagging behind. And they round a corner. A tree trunk is across the path. And Duppy grins. Standing up in his saddle, he addresses those that are pretending to not be there. An ambush, a rubbish ambush attempt, a fallen tree. This is so amateurish. If you're going to do something, come out now and let's deal with it. Time is going and lunch is coming and I'm getting hungry. So let us resolve this problem. Show yourselves. And rightly they do. From within the shadows of the trees, figures camouflaged in twigs, all armed with the bows, show themselves. One aims, draws, and the arrow flies. It almost takes Duppy's hat off. But he catches it just in time as it leaves his head. Poking his finger through the hole. He's not happy. You almost had my head off. This hat was really expensive. I hope you can do better than that. His heart is thumping now. He knew at that short distance he should have been hit. Why did they miss? Either they are extremely useless or they are very skilled. Duppy is anxious, but doesn't draw his sword. Not yet. He hears Kiya draw alongside. And at that moment, something changes. All the bowmen disappear into the woods, and a figure climbs onto the tree trunk, blocking the road. Duppy lets out a low whistle. This he did not expect, for the figure is like Kiya, dressed all in black with violet eyes. In some ways, he's relieved. He knew this was a trap, but he didn't know for who. Evidently, though, it's for Kiya. Is this a master and student disagreement? For the figure, it's certainly larger build than Kiya. And why would they go to all of this trouble of attracting Kiya along? Although it wasn't Kiya's choice. Curious, perhaps some secrets may be revealed, for he never knew there was another like Kiya around. This dark figure poses tauntingly on the log and then leaps behind it to be suddenly upon a horse much like Kiya's. Duppy is not surprised in the slightest. The figure hurtles up the rest of the track. What does surprise Duppy is that Kiya, who usually just hangs around behind and slinks in the darkness, bolts after him. Her horse jumps the log and hurtles along the track behind the other figure. Duppy pats Betsy, looks around nervously, just in case there's anyone else lurking, draws his sword and nudges Betsy to follow along the track, but at a slower pace, for he's certain whether if there's going to be any fighting, he does not want to be anywhere near Kiya and this other one when it happens. About another half mile up the track, Duppy encounters a clearing. He could smell it as he turned towards it. The smell of smoke and campfire and cooking. Oh, he remembered he's not eaten that much. He's only had beer this morning and it's not even lunchtime yet. His stomach rumbles at that wonderful smell of cooked chicken. But we have a fight first. Well, most likely we do, unless Kiya's done things first. But let us find out. He nudges Betsy in to this clearing. Well, he has no need for fighting for the moment, for bodies do lie around, scorched and burning. Ahead, on the other side of the clearing, is a dark entrance to a ruined building, perhaps a tower of some kind. There's not much left of it. It only goes up to the second story. And it has no roof. That looks like that has caved in. He ties up Betsy and continues on foot and steps into the darkness of the entrance. The courtyard before him is devoid of rubble. But what catches his attention are a few things. On one side, a group of bandits hold, quite obviously, the women villagers that they have abducted back into a cell of some kind. But everybody's faces are turned towards the other end of the courtyard. And Duppy joins likewise. And it is some sight. Kiya and this other figure are leaping from ruined pillar to ruined pillar, from column to column, from stone to stone, from window alcove to another window alcove, throwing steel sharp things that fly brightly against the sky, the sun that filters through. Occasionally a zap of lightning emits from their fingers at one another, but misses and hits and scorches and explodes masonry nearby. When they do engage, they're withdrawn scimitars, clashing, pirouetting, parrying, and dancing away. It is a sight to behold. Duppy had never seen such artistry in fencing. He was even humbled enough to say it beats even his skill at the blade. Duppy's attention is drawn back from the fighting. For those that are guarding the hostages, notice Duppy's appearance, and one steps forward with his sword, evidently wanting to challenge. The dishevelled figure with a rusty blade. Duppy sizes up. This is going to be no match. The man runs at him. Oh, that is his first mistake, thinks Duppy, as he easily sidesteps and swipes with his sword across the man's stomach, and he falls screaming to the floor. He looks at those remaining that stand there, trying to keep the hostages contained, while keeping an eye on their master, who fights Kiya. Duppy swings his sword a few times with a nice swooshing sound in the air. So you fellows, any one of you able to give me some decent competition? A man steps out from behind at the back, and Duppy gives a slight whistle of surprise. This man is not quite the amateur that his predecessor may have been. He's a huge, hulking man, muscles the size of trunks of branches. He swings a double-headed axe. He handles that well enough to make Duppy think perhaps this man is a worthy opponent for a change. He certainly knows one hit from him will be seriously bad. The guy does not run at Duppy this time, but slowly walks, swinging the axe back and forth. Duppy salutes the sword and prepares to engage. The axeman swings a mighty whoosh of air. Duppy ducks, easily escaping, and sees some of the feathers from his hat fall to the ground. That was still an expensive hat. He quickly swings around and catches the axeman as he recovers from his stroke and slices up his arm and leg. The axeman doesn't even seem to think it's worth bothering about. He has no reaction to the injury, and Duppy is impressed. The axeman attempts another swing, narrowly misses Duppy again. But again, this is not a proper match for Duppy. He catches the man's stomach again very easily across and skewers him. He falls slowly to the ground. Duppy pulls his sword out and points it at the others that still remain. The villagers, the village women folk that are held there, are trying to break free, but they are not strong enough to pass those that remain. They look between Duppy and the other fight. They know rescue is here. Another approaches Duppy. This time, maybe a good contender. But Duppy makes out underneath the dirt the uniform of an ex-royal knight. And his sword is in good condition, which he swings expertly. Duppy beams. Well, I hope, my friend, you did not just steal those from someone of a better quality than yourself. The man gives him an evil grin and salutes Duppy with his sword. Duppy returns the salute, and they both crouch down and begin to circle one another. Duppy thinks this is more like it, a good match. They clash, swords flying, pirouetting, parrying, dancing around. Unfortunately, Duppy slips and his opponent slices his stomach side. Blood stains his tunic even more crimson, and Duppy holds his hand to his side while he continues to fight. Kiya sees this figure standing upon the log. She knows the trap is for her, and this figure is one that has dogged her for a long time. Perhaps now then, she thinks, we may resolve this. And when the figure jumps from the log and materializes his horse and bolts along the track, she does not hesitate but to chase. Their horses are swift, but they are not natural beings. And within seconds, they are entering the clearing. Kiya sees all those standing up, drawing weapons, ready to attack, whereas her opponent, her quarry, hurtles continually into the darkness of the ruins ahead of her. She would rather not have these on her back, for the battle that is to come will be intense. So leaping from her horse, she somersaults and her steed fades away. She lands lightly and easily, ready at these groups attacking towards her. She raises her hands, utters some words, and bolts of lightning fly from her fingers, striking each one of those. And those poor men burst into flames and scream in agony as they convulse on the floor. She does not wait and runs lightly to the darkness ahead. She notices the guards and the women's folk in the one corner, but she has no time for any rescue. This is a matter of life and death, her life and her opponent's death. The figure stands on one of the broken columns of the ruins. He has drawn a scimitar and some practice swishes with it. He beckons to Kiya, and Kiya does not pause. She draws her scimitar from her back and runs full speed at the figure. He jumps off and back some assaults onto another column while she leaps to the same spot he just stood at. They fight intensely, jumping, magic, narrowly missing one another with their weapons. It's then she notices Duppy appear. Well, he will concentrate on the heroic rescue while she resolves this thorn in her side. She's aware of Duppy fighting, but when he lets out a cry in pain and she casts a glance to see him clutching his side and blood between his fingers, that momentary lapse of attention allows her attacker to strike. He too buries a knife into her side and she collapses against the wall. He poses tauntingly and turns his back towards and walks towards a dark alcove in the wall. She painfully pulls out the dagger from her side and throws it towards him. It hits him square in the back. He barely acknowledges it, staggers slightly, and reaches behind himself to pull it out. He turns to face her and looks at the blooded dagger and throws it to the ground. His voice is booming. So, Kiya, you fight with dishonor now, then. Kiya looks down to see Duppy finishing off his opponent, and all eyes are back on them. She stands, scimitar clenched to her fist. But you do not fight with honor yourself, brother. And she points her fingers at him. He is aware that she is about to use magic, and he makes a run into the darkness of the alcove. Just at the moment her fingers emit a bright light and a huge ball of flame launches from her fingers and fills the entire alcove with flame. Kiya struggles to stand and slowly approaches the alcove that crackles and pops with the heat. There is no sign of her opponent, of her brother. Perhaps the heat totally incinerated him, or perhaps not. But now she has another problem. She is seriously injured. She can feel the blood gushing from her side. And she looks down at her companion, Duppy, who does not seem to be in a good state either. Slowly, she makes it down the steps to the courtyard, and Duppy staggers to join her. They sink side by side to the ground. At such a fight, the hostage takers that remain, their confidence departs and they run. The village women folk stand unsure whether to assist their fallen, their injured liberators. But the group en masse decide to run. For whatever's happened here is beyond their kind of thing. Alone in the ruins, they both sit breathing heavily and clutching their sides. Kiya gasps. I should, by rights, hunt all of those villagers down, for they heard a part of my identity that I wish to keep secret. And you too, my friend Duppy. You heard it too. Duppy laughs quite sarcastically. I don't think we're in any fit state to go hunting now, are we, Kiya? You have some magic? Well, do you have any way of healing? Because I think shortly, if we do not heal ourselves, we will be here for the end of time. We will not be leaving here alive. Kiya nods and rummages into her pocket to pull out a bottle. She opens some of her cloth and puts it to her lip and takes a swig and then gives the bottle to Duppy. Drink that. It will stop the bleeding for the moment. We need to be away from here. Then I can do us some healing. A couple of hours later, they stagger through the woods and find a suitable place to set up a camp. They both sink to the ground painfully. The bleeding has at least stopped, but the wounds are very tender. Kiya grabs the tree trunk they're resting against and gets back on her feet. I need to go find some herbs. Duppy nods exhaustedly as she disappears into the woods. She has gone a while and slowly returns with bundles of whatever these herbs are. Duppy is, as no ranger, has no idea what these things are, and he watches intently as Kiya fires a piece of lightning at a pile of wood to ignite it, takes a pot from his Betsy's saddlebag and starts to concoct some kind of herbal remedy. It stinks horribly. But soon, Kiya presents the pot. She pours it into one of the cups from his saddlebag and tells him to drink it. He gives her the cup back so that she could have some herself, but she refuses. No, she says, I will do my healing in private. Duppy doesn't disagree. He's used to the way of Kiya. He watches as Kiya prepares to leave to go into the woods on her own. But he's not totally unobservant to notice that as she leaves, she throws a pellet of something into this fire and an acrid smoke comes up. He tries to pick himself up, but the smoke envelops him and he feels a deep tiredness. He tries to fight, but sleep takes him. Duppy eventually wakes. There's some strange feelings. The wound to his side appears to have stopped hurting. And his eyes still slightly closed as the tiredness leaves him, touches his side to find the wound is completely healed. There is no sign of the injury. That surprise, or is it a surprise, brings him to wakefulness very quickly. With the roof canopy of the tree canopy, he's not able to tell the time of the day, but his stomach is telling him it is well past lunchtime. He is famished. There is no sign of Kiya. He must have been asleep for a good 2 or 3 hours. Well, until Kiya shows, let's see if we can go and find something for lunch. He leaves his sword where he is and just takes his dagger and heads into the woods. He's not very good at this. It's only occasionally that he has to hunt for his own food. You know, he is a sir and all that. He usually just pays for it. But when needs must, a bit of rabbit or squirrel might do. Even a bit of mushroom might help. So he's optimistic. The woods are dense, and he's struggling to find his way. His ears are alert for any sound of movement of any animal that he could take. Is then his ears pick up singing. Beautiful singing. It's certainly an elven voice. He's familiar with some of the language. He encounters many of the elves at the royal court. But this dialect he's not completely familiar with. But it is beautiful, spellbinding. He goes to explore. With care, he follows the sound and encounters a small pool of water with a cascading waterfall. And on a large lump of stone, boulder by the foot of the waterfall, is a woman. She is beautiful, white with white hair. She has her back to him and she is brushing her hair. He tries to move around to get a better look, wondering, is this one of these fair elves, wood elves? He doesn't see that often. Unfortunately, his carelessness causes a twig to snap. The figure hears and leaps instantly into the water. He swears to himself and moves closer to the edge to see where the figure may turn up. He watches a shadow swim very sleek and quickly through the water and stop underneath a tree root overhanging of the pool. He sees a figure slightly rise out of the water. Don't be afraid, he says, realizing in his other hand he's holding a dagger. He quickly sheathes that. I mean you no harm. I am looking for my friend, my companion. Have you seen a figure in black go past this way? No. No response. I came because I heard your voice. Beautiful singing. Will you sing for me some more? Still no response. He tries to repeat that in Elfish. No response. Scanning the pool, his eyes find the boulder that she was sat upon before, and nearby a pile of black clothes. His stomach turns to stone. My friend has been through here. Are you a Whartonid? Have you bewitched him? Please tell me where he is. And slowly Duppy reaches around and picks up a fallen branch, just in case he needs to defend himself. His dagger may not be good enough. It's at that moment two violet lights shine from underneath the overhang of roots. Duppy's mouth falls open. He drops the branch and does not know what to make of this. The figure moves, dips into the water and swims towards him. Duppy is fixed to the ground. He cannot move. He's not sure if he's been bewitched or whether it is just fear. He does not know what to make of this. And out of the water, this beautiful woman steps, her hair falling down her chest. But the very familiar violet eyes stare back at him. His mouth wide open in astonishment and fear flaps. He has no words to say, which is a first for Duppy. The woman before him squints at him. Her eyes then open wide. And she puts a finger on his chest. So, Sir Percival Duppy, you have seen my real identity. It was bad enough that you know the other was my brother, but now you know who I am and what I am. Remember this, my brother is the only other one that knows this. While we're on this task for the king, I'll be watching you. And afterwards, for I have no reason to really want to kill you, should you ever reveal my identity, I will know it is you, and then I will kill you. Is there something you need to be doing right now? Duppy's face looks quizzical, and then he turns bright red and turns around. Your reputation, Duppy, is well founded. I didn't think you were that intelligent, but obviously your brain is somewhere else. Let me get dressed. But promise me, Duppy, you will take an oath, swear secrecy. He does not hesitate. My lips are sealed. It is early afternoon as Duppy and Kiya return back to the village. Duppy is extremely hungry, and the smell of quite a jubilant village with an obvious feast going on at the return of the women's folk. As they enter the village, they are swarmed by everyone, including Potho holding his wife. Everybody is happy. And at least Duppy and Kiya will be well fed before they return to their task for the king. Thank you. Oh, that was what's that? An hour and 15, hour and 20. I hope you're still with me. So thank you for that. I am always welcome to any comments on that or whatever. Whether I continue doing any more of the series, there's more serialization of it, I don't know yet. There's still a lot more to do on that one, I think. And I hope you found it interesting or enjoyable, intriguing. Just drop me a message and I'll reply to any of it. I'm going to post this up on YouTube shortly. So happy to hear anyone's comments. But thank you for coming along, those that are still with me there on Zoom, and bye-bye YouTube land. Thank you. Bye-bye.